Okay, thank you for attending this session. It's called Transmedia Games for Learning. My name is Randall Fujimoto. I run a nonprofit called Game Train Learning, and our mission is to promote game-based learning in education. So we do things like teacher workshops and curriculum development and anything else to do with game-based learning. So in this session, I want to talk about transmedia games, and in particular transmedia games for learning. And first, let me move to some slides before I start. So here's first off a shout out to sponsors of Learning Revolution. And next is this world map, and you can go ahead and use the whiteboard, use the tool there to show where you are. I guess it's just you for now, Kristen, so you can actually even just type it in if you like. Okay, there you go. I'll put in where I am. I am here. Oh, good. You're in California too. Okay. And I'll go ahead and start off with the presentation. Okay, transmedia games for learning. Transmedia, so we'll take a look at first what is transmedia. I guess Christian, you asked a question about that earlier, so hopefully I'm sure you have used transmedia, so it's just kind of a fancy term for the use of multiple media, so we'll get into that. The entertainment benefits of a transmedia learning game, and then we'll talk about some transmedia gaming examples. And we'll talk about the educational benefits of a transmedia learning game. And then finally, we'll talk about some design considerations for designing your own transmedia learning game. And I guess Kristen, just you right now. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and I can go ahead and take your questions as they come along. So feel free to make this a dialogue between us. I wonder if I can enable your mic well, I guess if Steve comes back, we can figure that out. So, what is transmedia? Here's a definition from Andrea Phillips, who's a transmedia designer. And she says it's the art of telling a story over multiple media. So and this is key, where each medium is making up a unique contribution to the whole. So it's not just the book or the movie or just the TV show. It's multiple media together, and each piece of the media, each medium has a specific part of the story. So in other words, you can't get the full story, the full complete story, unless you're accessing all these different media. Okay, makes sense? So let's look at some examples of transmedia. And the first I want to start with the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which is actually one of my favorite examples of transmedia, and become a very popular series out there. It ran from April 2012 to May 2013, so just over 1 year. And it won the Creative Arts Emmy Award for such a great series. But the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, this is a take on the Jane Austen novels. So Pride and Prejudice, right? Thanks, Steve. Had a brain cramp for a second. Thank you there. And what it started with, what it featured, was a series of web videos. So it's just Lizzie, or the actor who played Lizzie, just first of all, just introducing herself, introducing her to her sisters, and going through like a typical web video. And videos typically were about 5 to 7 minutes or so, and they always came out on a Monday and a Thursday at a regularly scheduled time. So you knew every Monday and every Thursday you get a new episode of the video. But the whole story, it's a modern day take on Pride and Prejudice. And Lizzie is a college grad student, and she goes through her life in today's world as a modern day version of Elizabeth Bennet. And so, in addition to the main web video, there were also the sisters also, or the younger sister had her own video blog going on at the same time, so you can see what's going on with her life. And she would post her videos very regularly too. So if you became a fan of hers and interested in her story, you can kind of see what she was doing, even though the main novel maybe didn't cover Lydia's story so much in depth. There was also a number of different social media built around the whole project, including Facebook, including a Twitter feed for all these different, all the different characters. Basically, almost every character I think had a Twitter feed, including William Darcy, even the Kitty Bennet, who they decided to make a cat in this story, and the cat had this Twitter feed, which has like 13,000 plus followers, which is pretty amazing. They had a Tumblr feed, they had Pinterest, and showing off different attire that they were wearing. One of the companies that Lizzie worked at was Columns and Columns, and they actually had a real website that's out there, so people stumbled across this website for Columns and Columns, and they had the project that she's working on, so added more realism to the project. In their products, they sold these little buttons, badges, mugs, and things to go along with it. And finally, they came out with a book, The Secret Diaries of Lizzie Bennet. So you can see it's all kinds of different media surrounding this, making up this whole transmedia project. And while it's not necessarily a transmedia game or a transmedia learning game, it's just an example of a well-done transmedia project to maybe give you some ideas about what transmedia is. Next is the Hunger Games, and the Hunger Games, I'm sure you know, is a very popular books and also movie series, but there's a transmedia project surrounding the Hunger Games, and I'll play you a quick intro video which kind of introduces you to the Hunger Games transmedia. So hopefully you can see that. I'll play that. Okay, so that gives you an idea about the extent of the transmedia surrounding the Hunger Games. So maybe you just saw the movies, or maybe you just read the books, but you see there's this vast world out there of not only the Hunger Games people creating this content, but also the fans of the books or the movies creating all this content surrounding it. So all the fan fictions and other sites and things like that. So it makes a single property much bigger than it is just with a single medium. And you can see this is why entertainment brands like movies, basically almost all movies now have some sort of transmedia associated with it these days. So with that, let's take a look at the entertainment benefits before we get into the educational benefits. So you've got richer storylines because you've got more depth of different characters and different themes and different content areas. Even different locations. You can, like in Harry Potter, you can there's all transmedia surrounding that, so you can dive into specific locations and learn more about that. People have written about those things. Secondly, new media consumers, and kind of this is the key to the whole thing, I guess, is because with the rise of the internet and with Web 2.0 and this participatory culture, we live today in a transmedia world. So most of the time, we've got people not just consuming a single medium, like not just watching TV, you've got your tablet open in front of you, you've got your phone next to you, and a lot of times you're doing, you're using all three or multiple media at the same time. So this is the way we consume media, and especially the younger people, they're used to consuming media in this way. And so therefore, it seems only natural that any new content that's out there, whether it be entertainment or educational, take advantage of this transmedia thinking style of users these days. Next, multiple entry points. So with transmedia, you've got all these different mediums that are out there, and if you say you've never heard of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and you stumble across a Twitter feed by one of the characters, that will take you into the whole story. Maybe then you'll discover the main videos. So there's all these different ways to enter the transmedia. And then finally, audience participation. I touched on it, that there's all this fan fiction that people want to create and want to be a part of the story. And so transmedia allows more people to actually participate in the story instead of just sit back and consume the media. Any questions so far? Feel free to type any questions you like. We've got okay, we'll keep on going. Next, we'll get into some educational example of a transmedia project in World Without Oil. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it was a transmedia project where you assumed that the world or that oil prices were slowly going up, and that the world was slowly running out of oil, and how you would how people or players would react to that. So I'll tell you a quick intro to that. I'll give you an idea of what that was about. Okay, so that's the introduction to World Without Oil. Now, that was a game that it ran for several weeks, but after the game finished, they created a series of lesson plans to go along with it, and so you can access these lesson plans right now even, and go through the whole exercise with a class right now by going to the World Without Oil website. And there's a whole curriculum on there. And so let's segue that into talking about gaming, because our first part I talked about in the Hunger Games and Lizzie Bennet are just transmedia projects. Now we get into World Without Oil, which is an actual a game, transmedia gaming experience. So the kind of the difference between just a transmedia project that you see out there, it's mainly just for storytelling. The transmedia, most of the transmedia projects that are out there, as opposed to a game where there's rules and goals and challenges and feedback to the players. And then in both, they're also very interactive and very participatory. So the idea is to get the users or the players to participate as much as possible. And that's what we see in these, in what was described in World Without Oil. Jane Lavelle described as an alternate reality game, which is the type of a transmedia game. And so the next part, I want to segue into talking about alternate reality games, because and share with you an example of a game that I made for a history course, and also to help you understand how maybe you can design an alternate reality game for any subject at all. And thank you, Annette, for the link to the World Without Oil lesson plans. So let's go ahead and play a game really quickly with just a few of us in here. Steve, if you're still here, you can feel free to participate too. It'll be a very short game. And to get us started, this is your one clue. So hopefully you won't need 10 minutes to find this code word. But the first person to do it will be the Transmedia hero. Oh, Annette, you're supposed to figure it out. That's what this game is about. And I guess because the recording will be pretty dull with just silence here, every minute I'll go ahead and give you a hint until you guys get it, unless you don't want a hint. Hints, yes, okay. The last line is your first hint. So the Twitter feed. No, Steve, the code word is not the code word. Have you found the Twitter feed yet? Oh, Marine's getting close. But that is not the code word. You're on the right page, but your next hint is in the parentheses on that page. Nope, it's not give. So take a look at the parentheses, and your next hint I'll give you in a few seconds. Your next hint is to right-click on that page. Unless you're on mobile, then maybe you're out of luck. Anybody getting close? Oh, Maureen, very good. So Maureen, do you have the code word? No, Annette, that's the right page though. So Annette, if you right-click on that page, and then click on View Source, you'll see where Maureen got that link. Maureen, refer to the, oh, she might have the, no, not Simplicity. Go back to that first web page. Not all of these. Go back to that first page, Maureen, and the first thing that you typed in, and then that's your clue there too for the code word. I think she's got it. Very good. Maureen is the winner. And so the way she got it was, the way she got it was after the Twitter feed referred you to that page, the ATE page, where it says always, always give. And then on the always, always give page, if you right-click on it and look at the source code of that web page, buried in the source code, which isn't very big, but if you right-click on the page and you view the source of the page, there's the fastcodecreate.com link to that page that Maureen posted the link up above. And then if you look at that article, and that article is about 5 lessons for storytelling for the transmedia world. One of the lessons, the transmedia principles, is always, always give rewards in proportion to effort expended. So that's, anyway, that might have been a little tough for a few people here, but in a typical transmedia game, usually you've got like dozens, if not hundreds, and if not thousands of people all participating in it at the same time. And usually they're all discussing in different theories, and then somebody comes up with something and then points you in the right direction, and then eventually, so it's a whole crowdsourced kind of exercise where you go ahead and solve these types of puzzles. And they can solve them very, very quickly. So, for example, in one of the earliest alternate reality games, there was the puppet masters, which are the people controlling the game behind the scenes. They usually create a series of puzzles ahead of time, like a week or two or even a month ahead of time. And then as the players solve them, they can go and feed them out as the game is going. And they can tweak them as they go too. So, but in this one game, it's called The Beast. It's one of the very first examples of an alternate reality game. The puppet masters, they thought, okay, we've got a month's worth of puzzles here, and this should hold the crowd, which grew up to about 6,000 people. So it should hold the crowd for about a couple of weeks at least, if not a month. But it turned out that the group, their collective intelligence was so great that they solved it in just like a few days, a really, really short time. And so it put all this pressure on the designers to come up with new things because, and it shows the power of the crowd. And so that's kind of where where we'll get into with alternate reality games for learning. So this is Arising from Injustice is an educational alternate reality game that I created for U.S. history, and this was about World War II and the Japanese-American internment experience. I used to work for a nonprofit education organization that focused on the stories of these Japanese Americans that were put into these camps and then later went off to war. So I created this alternate reality game to teach about the history of that time period. And this is how I started the game, with this news article about this doctor named Alice Sasaki. Hopefully you can read this. But this article describes how she fell into a coma. She was found by her partner. And at the very bottom is a link to a website. And navigating to the website, you see the Western Neurotechnology Research Institute, and there is information about their project here. And the project is there's this memory history cognition device, and the device stores people's memories inside the device. So the Dr. Sasaki, it turns out when you go through the news here, she was testing this device, and during one session where she happened to be uploading the memories of the 1940s, her childhood, related to the Japanese American internment camps, she was uploading these memories into the device. This is when the device crashed and she fell into a coma. So the whole object of the game is to get her out of the coma, and in order to get her out of the coma, the students will need to, the doctor, her partner, is asking the students to provide digital artifacts that he can feed into the machine to hopefully revive her memory. But these digital artifacts have to be related to her memory. And so what he does is he gives you instructions, and then he gives you the memory dump of her memories. And so these are the memories. So after you go through a puzzle, just like we went through, you discover this memory log, and you go through this memory log of what she was going through, and it talks about her experience going into the internment camp and having to evacuate her home. And this particular mission was to create a word cloud based on her memory. So each group, and this was for middle school and high school students, so each group and had them play in groups of 4, and each group would come up with their own word cloud and send it to the doctor to feed into the memory history cognition device. And in this way, it would hopefully help Dr. Sasaki come out of her coma. And there's a series of missions like this where they need to create a digital artifact for each mission in order to feed it into the device. And so we had them create videos, a blog, and different Web 2.0 artifacts. So there was also this is the main control panel for the game, and which basically included the discussion forum. And in the game, I wanted all the discussion to be viewable by the teacher. So one of the rules of the game was that all discussion had to be done by each team inside their team discussion forum, so that the teacher can see if the team is on the right track or not, if they need some assistance, or if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then kind of help move the game along there. So a lot of formative feedback can go on in that discussion forum. And then also this is where they turn in their digital artifact, and so each team for this mission uploaded their word cloud, and all the other teams would review it and comment on it and get some reflection based on that. So in this way, they learn about the content going through the game, and also participate in a transmedia fashion. So hopefully that all makes sense. Maureen, the game is not viewable online. I do have some slides that I could share that talks about the game. So if, oh, sorry, that's Annette. And so if you contact me, I can share what I have with you. So let's talk about the educational benefits of this type of transmedia game. So number one, I guess first and foremost, oh, thank you, Maureen. There's on the slides here. First and foremost, it's a social learning experience. And we know today that learning is no longer just from the instructor or just from a textbook or just from the sage on the stage. It's from everybody, and most of our learning these days is from everywhere. And in this age of multiple media and the internet and tablets and phones and learning going on everywhere, more and more of our learning, not just formal learning, but informal learning. So more of our overall learning is coming from other people and other sources. And so this type of transmedia game really capitalizes on the social learning experience because it's all about social learning. It's not the teacher or the game designer saying this is what you need to learn, so learn it, but it's them discovering things and discussing ideas and learning that way. Secondly, reinforced learning because you can have different media covering the same topic or the same content or the same skills. You've got opportunities to reinforce the learning, and so therefore lead to better transfer of that learning, and also target multiple intelligences if you design the game that way. Participatory learning, we talked about that, how players are actively creating things, creating artifacts, adding their own opinions to the game, adding to the whole storyline. So it's a whole participatory event, which you need. I mean, we all know you need learners to be active in order to get them actually learning. And finally, it's a whole media literacy exercise that it really helps develop all your literacy of all different types of media. And we know that with learning happening in all different ways, that media literacy of all media is important these days. So these types of games have a lot of educational benefits, maybe that above and beyond your typical online or your typical digital educational games that are out there. Let's see, the other, I guess the other big benefit that I didn't put on here, but I should have, is that for teachers and for educators, this is something that you can design yourself. And it doesn't cost very much. All it costs, I mean, basically you can do it if you just, can put up a few web pages, can create some social media. You don't need fancy technical skills or programming skills or graphic art skills. So basically any teacher can do this and create his or her own transmedia game. Just by spending some time, putting some thought into it. It does take a lot of time, and it takes a lot of time to actually play the game. But if you don't have a big budget, this is a really ideal way to go, and you can cover any content that you want. Let's see. I think we're wrapping things up. Finally, we'll just talk a little bit about some design considerations if and when you plan to do your own transmedia game. So the way you approach things, just like any learning unit, you start with the objectives, and you figure out exactly what your goals are and what the outcomes you want for your students. Then you think of a storyline that can be broad enough to cover these and more and other learning objectives in case you want to add other learning objectives later on, or in case they don't cover everything. So you want a storyline that's broad enough to cover your topic. Then you start getting into designing your puzzles and your missions. And in designing puzzles and missions, you want to think about how is each one achieving a specific learning objective. So you want to kind of make a map of your learning objectives to your puzzles and missions, and then hopefully you'll map out everything. And then you can have multiple puzzles and missions going to one learning objective. And like I said, it's you get better transfer that way if you keep on going over specific content. Then you can think about your game environment. Do you want to use social media? Do you want to use just websites? Do you want to use video? What do you want your students to? How do you want your students to communicate? Do you need a discussion board, which is really helpful? Do you want them to have inter-team meetings regularly, either in person or online? So think about the whole game environment and what you're going to need that way. And then finally, think of your assessment pieces. So in my example, I use the digital artifacts, each one of those, as an assessment piece, and then use that for a reflection period for all the teams. Okay. And that's it I have for that. See if there's any questions or anything. Hope that all made sense. Oh, sorry, I saw this morning. Can you do this on your own? Or you can, actually, you mentioned like these game design tools, and you could actually use that, use those tools as part of your game. I mean, you can incorporate like a mission or a scenario where that requires maybe students or teams of students to go into, say, Scratch and create something with that, and as part of the game. So I think any and all media, that's kind of the cool thing about these transmedia games, is any and all media are fair game. Did you approach the project in a certain order? I guess in terms of design, going back to this slide, I guess it's kind of in this order, although the assessment piece together with the puzzles and missions have to go together, because you're designing your puzzles and missions and assessment together. But first and foremost, I guess you lay out your learning objectives, and then the trickiest thing, I think, that took me the longest time, and I'm designing a couple of other of these alternate reality games, is to get a storyline that is flexible, it's broad enough to cover all the learning objectives, and to be intriguing, to draw these players in. Gender difference. Actually, I found that girls actually seem to enjoy just as much, or maybe even more. I guess if you make it a competitive environment, I wouldn't have player versus player competition. I would have, if anything, I'd have team versus team competition, but not so much emphasize the competition part of it, but just to have some pride in being part of a team, and so that each person feels that they're part of the team and they're contributing to the team. But I found that the girls, they like to create the different things. So I think if you make it creative enough that they're participating in, like, creating things like, the word cloud example, they're really into that. So and creating videos and other things. I think I don't see any gender difference at all, as opposed, I mean, when you think of like video games, then you see a bigger gender difference. But I think because video games, maybe they emphasize competition a lot more than collaboration and creation, like these types of games do. Any other questions, or shall we wrap things up? If I can give you guys the mic. Oh, thanks for that. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.